right. Well, good evening, everyone, and good evening to those who are joining us online. My name is David Bryan, Chief Planner with the Department of Conservation and Recreation's Division of Planning and Recreation Resources. And we're here for our public information meeting for Wilderness Road State Park. So again, glad to be here. As we get going this evening, this is our basic agenda. We'll have a welcome. We'll ask Casey that's here to do an introduction to the park in a second, as well as to state parks in general with Dave Collett, our Western Operations Manager. And then we'll go through our purpose for master planning, why we're here, what we're going to be up to at this park over the next 18 to 24 months, talk a little bit about the resources, and then opportunities for you all to give input on the future of this park and what you'd like to see here at the park. Just a few housekeeping items we go in. I think most of y'all are familiar with the park, but if not, 2 exits, emergency exits at the back of the room. Bathrooms are across the hallway. Please put your phones on mute if you haven't already. We will be posting all of the materials for tonight on the DCR website. There's a project-specific webpage for the Wilderness Road Master Plan, so this will all be available there. And then we'll have a formal comment period, which will run through April 4th. So if you have any comments, feedback, input for us, please let us know tonight. We have a question and answer at the end. But if you think about something later, please reach out and let us know. Also, if anybody's online that has a question, please type it in the chat box. We do have that being monitored, and we can answer any questions at the end if needed. So again, our purpose tonight is to really introduce you all to master planning and what it means, what we're doing, what the process is, our time frame, and talk a little bit about the park today and the site analysis, our natural and cultural physical resources, and give you all the opportunity to provide some input on the questions. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Casey for a brief intro to the park. And Casey, if you could also introduce your staff that are here, that'd be great. Yeah, actually, let's stand right here because that's the microphone that's picking up.
Yeah. All right, good evening. I'm Casey McClure, and I'm the park manager here at Wilderness Road State Park. I'll introduce you to the staff that we have here. For those of you that are in the room, I'll have them raise their hand. You might be able to pick them up on the webcam, but we have our office manager, Crystal Kirk, our chief ranger, Nathan Beather, who's in the back helping with some tech. We have Ryan Teague, who is our park ranger, LE. Mackenzie Docent, who is one of our interpretive staff members, as well as our park naturalist. Our chief ranger visitor experience is Mr. Charles Jones, or as we know him here at Marcus. And I think that might be all of our park staff that we have in the room at this minute. And we're also very blessed to have a couple of our Friends Group members, Ms. Frances Inwood, who is the secretary of our Friends Group, and our current president, Mr. Billy Heck. And most of you probably remember Billy. He was the last park manager before my appointment, and the first chief ranger visitor experience for a number of years here at Wilderness Road State Park. So we're so glad that you came out to participate in the meeting, if you're here in person or if you're with us online, and we thank you. Dave, anything else you need?
Move it over to Dave, who I think is next. So Dave Collett's going to give an introduction to Virginia State Park.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave Collett. I'm the field operations manager for Virginia State Parks. I've been with the organization for, this is coming up on my 34th year. It's a kind of a proud moment for me to be standing up here in front of everyone today. One of my claim to fame is I was the first employee here at Wilderness Road back in the day when we first purchased the property in 1992. I was a young wage maintenance ranger. Got to do a lot of interesting things here and got to explore and everything when I was going to school down here at LMU a few years ago. And then after that, I left the park and then traveled around the state till I got to my current position. But what you see up here today is kind of our map of our system. And right now, it's a very exciting year for us this year. It is our 90th anniversary. We we opened an entire state park system June 15th in 1936, 6 original state parks. We have grown considerably since then. And so we just recently opened our 44th state park last October up in Highland County, way up in the tip up there of the mountains. But you being here today is intentional. And, we're very proud of all of our sites out there. They've all been chosen for their significant cultural, natural, and historic resources. And the planning is a very integral part of the process. And one of the easiest things that we kind of tease and joke about is actually acquiring a property. We have to have this master plan that we work on in order to access the funding. Without the recipe or the plan, it's very difficult to try to get the resources for the General Assembly. So we do take these meetings seriously. We thank everyone for coming out in person, and those of you who have come that are online today. We cherish your input. It's very important because it helps us make the decision. Because at the end of the day, this is your state park system. All of the Commonwealth citizens, the taxpayers, it is yours. We respect and we need your input because it's such a treasure for everyone. So if anybody doesn't have any questions, I think we're going to talk here at the end to open the floor up. I'll turn it back over to David, but thank you for being here.
All right, I'm going to turn the floor over now to our project manager for this Wilderness Road State Park Master Plan, and that's Salim Shishti. He's an environmental program planner with the Planning and Recreation Department or Division in DCR. So Salim.
Great. Thank you, David, and thank all of you for coming out tonight and for all of you online as well. It's wonderful that you take the initiative to help us to plan these parks, and we really do appreciate your input. And I see Billy over there. Hi, Billy. I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a while, sir.
Yes, it has. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about how we build the master plans. We're not going to talk that much tonight about what exactly is going to be in the park or how we're going to plan the park. That is something that we're going to be developing over the next 18 to 24 months. And we will be having a public comment meeting once we do have a draft master plan to look at and comment on exactly what we're thinking about doing in the park. We'll have another meeting then, and you'll again have another opportunity to ask questions, to make comments, and we'll have another 30-day comment period after that as well. But today we're going to talk mostly about the park and about how master planning works. So I'm going to start off with something about the park itself. And to do that, I need to put my glasses on, strangely enough. Okay. So this, as you may have noticed, and it says right there at the, oops, sorry. It says right there at the bottom of this slide, this is a master plan update. There have been a couple of other master plans before this, but we're required to update master plans every few years by legislation. So there already is a purpose that's in that master plan, but this master plan is also going to be updating the purpose as well to bring it up to the modern standards. So as you can see, the purpose of Wilderness Road State Park is to tell the story of the migration westward to the wilderness, in quotes, and also to celebrate the cultural, historical, and natural resources of the Cumberland Mountain region fabled in the explorations of Daniel Boone. And that was the park purpose statement that they used when they were doing the last update of the Wilderness Road Master Plan. So a little bit more about the park background. Some of you may know it, some of you may not, but at this point, we just want to make sure that everybody's playing on the same chessboard or checkerboard, depending on what you like better. So as David was saying, this is a park that was formulated in 1992. There was a bond issue that identified this county, Lee County, as integral to building the park system in Virginia. And then the next year, the site was purchased by DCR in order to make a state park. And then an additional piece, where's the map right there? Well, I can't show you, but the Gilbert track was added in 2008. Then again, the Wilderness Trail Road Trail was deeded in 2013. So at this point, the entire park encompasses a little over 390 acres. What is a master plan? Okay, so as I said before, we are doing this as far as a legislative obligation, and pursuant to that state code, all parks in our system have to have a master plan. The master plan identifies all these different kinds of resources that Dave Bryan talked about: physical, natural, and cultural resources. It also highlights what makes the park unique. So for instance, here at Wilderness Road, we have this living history part of it, which makes this park very unique. There are other things as well that we'll be getting into, and David will be talking about those later on. Also, each park has to have goals, and those goals will create functional and long-range master plans that will guide our future development and the management of the park. The master plan also develops a park mission statement, as I said before, although we call it a purpose statement now, and also sets out goals for the park as well. Some of those goals will be to preserve and conserve the natural and historic and cultural resources, to provide a variety of recreational opportunities, to put in a phased development plan. And what we mean by that is, these plans are meant to be a 30-year plan. Even though we try to update them every 10 years, each plan looks out 30 years in the future in order to plan this development. And we phase it into 10-year blocks, so to speak. So each of those phases, will have certain things that we're looking at, like a top priority in the first phase, and some other things in the second phase, and then in the third phase as well. Some things that can be put off, so to speak, for another few years. But the other thing that's very important about our goals in our master plan is that we want to incorporate your input, which is why we have meetings like this with a question and answer period. We also have a 30-day comment period after this, and I will be putting up a slide later on that will have information on how to use that 30-day comment period. As far as the vision goes for the master plan, this is kind of the inner workings of a planner's mind in here. We're thinking, well, what do we have here? We have some physical resources, we have some natural resources, we have some cultural resources. What do we have, and how do we put them together in our minds to make an inventory kind of where we stand right now? And then we look at what our plans are. We look at, well, what do we want? What do visitors want? What do we hear from our visitors saying, maybe we should have this at the park or that or something else. So we put those things together. What do we have, and what do we want, and what do you want? And then we ask ourselves, well, how do we get there? And the plan that comes out at the end of this 18 to 24 month process is an answer to how we might get there. And the way that process looks is kind of like a cycle, where we start off, we've already done some project pre-programming, like you can see at the top of the circle there. And then we have a kickoff meeting, which we've already had with the staff here, where we go over these kinds of things and we talk to the staff about what the staff is looking at as far as the park goes. And then we spend a great deal of time and precisely look at and evaluate the existing conditions. And David is going to talk about those existing conditions in just a little while. And then we go and we take all of that, we put together some idea of what we might want to do, and we have a public information meeting. And as you can see, we are here. Okay. After we leave here, there'll be that 30-day comment period, like I said. Then the staff will go back into what we call some of these other planning meetings. We'll have a visitor experience meeting, which we're having at this week anyway. Then there's a needs assessment meeting. That's where we develop this 30-year phase development plan. All of that gets put together, and then my job at that point is to take it all and put it into a draft of a master plan, which gets reviewed, gets commented on by the public, yourselves again, and then it goes to our board, and then eventually gets back to the General Assembly. They look at it for 30 days, and then we have a closing and an adoption of the plan. So it goes through lots of review. It goes through public review, it goes through staff review, it goes through legislative review. It's really something that it's looked at many times before it actually gets adopted, to make sure that all the things that are going in there are things that are not only necessary but also beautiful. They really answer the park's purpose. They really answer the purpose of a master plan, and we look at that 30-year development plan as something that can really happen. So now I'm going to turn it back over.
All right, so in master planning, really resources lead the way. And we really talk about internally that there's three main pillars of planning. Number one is resources, number two is the visitor experience, and then number three is our capital development and staffing needs to make it all happen. So on the left side of the screen here, you can see the Virginia State Parks mission statement. The first thing in that sentence is the Virginia State Parks mission is to conserve the natural, scenic, historic, and cultural resources of the Commonwealth. And so when we do master planning, that's the first thing we look at is these natural, cultural, and physical resources that make the park special. Because we want to preserve and protect those resources while also providing great recreational opportunities for the visitors and educational opportunities, which of course Wilderness Road State Park does exceptionally well. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of a brief tour for those in here who may not be as familiar with the park or online. We're going to first go through just a brief review of physical resources at the park, pretty high level, then get into natural resources that are special, and then Casey's going to lead us through some slides about the cultural resources here at the park. All right, so we'll get started. So we are in the visitor center. If you weren't aware, this is where we're at tonight in the theater. This is also, of course, the sort of the administrative hub of the park, where our staff offices are, and so forth. So this is usually the first place, the first location that visitors are going to interact with if they're new to the park. Martin Station, of course, is what I'm going to call the heart of the park, where all the interpretive work really happens, and the period stories are brought to life, and that's one of the things. So I first came here probably about 5-6 years ago. I don't go back as far as Dave does, but with my family, I came here we did the DCR Trail Quest, which is an internal sort of competition that encourages visitors to go see all the state parks in the system. And having done that and visited all of them as just a private citizen, this park really stood out as being super unique from the interpretive side of what y'all do here at the park, and that living history that brings everything to life. And I guess my son was probably about 7 years old at the time, and to see your kid sort of get to see back into the 1700s and get that full understanding, or at least a partial understanding of that world, which was so different, compared to what the kids are growing up with today. I mean, it was an amazing, amazing day. And Billy, we had to make sure you got into the presentation somehow. So, all right. So there's Billy, if you don't know him. All right. So the Carlin Mansion, obviously, also a totally different time period, and we've been talking a lot about that with some of our visitor experience work. But just to the east of the visitor center here, it's another major structure in the park, and certainly a place where we can do a lot more interpretation down the road. Our primary day use area in the park is sort of a little bit further north, which includes picnic shelters, playgrounds, picnic tables. And this is really the most, what I'm going to call the stereotypical area of the park that we have in most of our state parks, a place for families to get away, let the kids play in a safe area, have a picnic, enjoy the weather, enjoy the surrounding scenery, the mountains in the background, and that type of thing. In terms of trails, we don't have a lot of trails, but it's, tiny but mighty maybe. So we got the four trails in the park. Obviously, the largest one is the Wilderness Trail, which is a rail-to-trail that covers roughly 8.5 miles that are owned by the park. The Wilderness Trail allows for hiking, biking, and equestrian uses. Fisherman's Loop, which is just to the east of here, it allows both biking and hiking, and then everything else is hiking only. But again, 11 total miles, providing a variety of recreational opportunities for visitors. Other supporting infrastructure, of course, there's a variety of historic cabins and structures throughout the park that some of those have been rebuilt on site or brought in. But I really want to focus on those last three bullets there. We always like to bring this up in master planning meetings, that there are a lot of infrastructure pieces that are necessary to run a park efficiently. And though hopefully as a visitor, you don't necessarily see them or you don't necessarily take notice of them, they do keep things rolling for us. So maintenance facility, storage barns and sheds, every park needs them to keep things going. Ranger residences, we have 2 here on the property. And then there is a contact station as well, which you will obviously see as you come on in. All right, moving into natural resources. And by the way, we had to find a way to get both the bison as well as the oxen into this presentation somehow. So they're sort of a little bit placeholders to ooh and all over in between slides. But we're going to go over just a basic run through of the resources here: watersheds, soils, ecological cores, some sensitive species. Some of these things you may know, some you may not. So hopefully we can all learn a little bit more about the park together. So we're part of the Tennessee Powell watershed here at the park. So if you're a raindrop that goes into Indian Creek is going to be going down to the Tennessee Powell, and that's something that obviously very different from the majority of the state that's flown to the Chesapeake Bay. We are not flown to the bay here. Flood zones wise, most of the property is categorized by minimal flood hazard, but we do have a significant chunk of the park closer to the southern end, about 23 acres in the 100-year floodplain and an acre in the 500-year floodplain. Most of that's around Indian Creek, which again is just to the east of this building, or just to the east of Carlin. Soils wise, the diversity of soils on the property, on the map over there on the far right of the room, for those online, you can't see what I'm pointing at, but this upper site, this is known as the Gilbert's Tract. It goes all the way up to basically close to the ridge. And because of that, we have everything from, upland, very rocky soils, all the way down to sort of these floodplain type soils around where we're standing today. We have about 9 acres of wetlands in the park. Most of these are associated with Indian Creek again. Ecological cores. So we have a sister division, the Division of Natural Heritage, and they look at the areas of the state that have the least development in contiguous areas of habitat that haven't been broken up by power lines or roads or neighborhoods and so forth. And this area on the northern end of the Gilbert's Tract is currently classified as a C1 core of outstanding significance because, again, it is so, it's hard to get to. It's up there near the ridge, but again, it provides some great ecological habitat with high integrity, very low disturbance. All right, there's only 4 main ecosystems on the property that we want to talk about briefly. About most of the forest on this property, if you go out and you're in especially the Indian Ridge area, about 82 acres or so across the property is montane forest. That's the short version of that, but montane dry and dry mesic calcareous forest. But it's forest land, and it has a really interesting history, and it also hosts some very special plants that we're going to talk about in the next slide. We've also got a variety of forest types up on the top of the mountain: oak hickory and oak heath forest, and then we have some floodplain forest around Indian Creek and its tributaries. But this is what I find the most interesting is really these sensitive species that are this park provides a home to. And we talked a little bit about this with staff today that, when people come to Wilderness Road, they're coming for the cultural story. They're coming for the history. Walking in is that there's also some very sensitive and unique natural native species here that, are hard to find throughout the region, throughout the state, and even globally in some cases. So I don't have them all pictured on this slide, but just a few of them you can see on the top here. We got Eastern False Aloe, which is secure on the global scale, but in the state of Virginia or Commonwealth, it's imperiled. Mullen Foxglove, which is not pictured here. Again, we have it critically imperiled in the state. White blue-eyed grass over here is also likely vulnerable at the state level, and wild hyacinth over here on the far right is critically imperiled in the state level. So what's really neat is that these all grow and prosper here in the park. And so while we do, again, focus on those cultural stories that are super important, and Casey's going to get into them, we also have some really neat natural resources that we're protecting here. All right, and then finally, the Tennessee pigtoe. This is actually a mussel species, a freshwater mussel, which is found in Indian Creek area. And again, that is an imperiled species. Excuse me. All right, so when we go through our natural resource management, when we work with, so I have someone I'll introduce is in the back, Jordan Blevins there, you want to wave your hand. So Jordan is our resource specialist, district resource specialist that covers Wilderness Road. And so when Jordan works with the park to work on resource issues, this is a major challenge and also a blessing to be able to work with these species. Thankfully, these species respond to prescribed fire, and so we do a lot of management here at the park. If you ever see any prescribed fire signs out and so forth, or see any smoke coming from this place in the wintertime, it's probably doing some burning to help these species, which are all fire dependent. All right, and then finally here, unique management areas. So, well, we've got roughly 100, 120 acres of forest on the property. Most of the rest of the park is fairly open or developed. And about 40 acres are currently managed as open spaces. Most of these were agricultural fields in the past or hay fields. And currently they're basically being used for one of three purposes. So one group of fields is being converted through time to native wildflower meadows. And that's, again, also managed by prescribed fire, just like the forest areas I was talking about. And that's something I think that in the long run, it not only is important for these species, but it's also helps us tell the cultural story and sort of the landscapes and what things might have looked like back several hundred years ago at the time of the Wilderness Road. All right, we've also got some fields that are used for our animals here at the park, for example, the bison or the oxen now. And then you've got other fields that are really just kept mowed and utilized for public events and large volunteer days and so forth. So that really sums up our summary of our natural resources. And so now what we're going to do is turn it over to really, again, the heart of the issues at the park, and that's our cultural resources that Casey is going to cover.
All right, we'll talk about an overview of the cultural heritage that includes our Native American heritage, frontier settlement of European cultures as they moved from North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, coming up through the Cumberland Gap, later become Kentucky, the Ely family settlement in Lee County that began in the late 1790s and would develop over 100 plus years. One of the things that a lot of folks maybe don't realize is when you're walking on the rail to trail, you're actually walking on what used to be an old railroad bed that was developed in the 19th century by the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. And when we talk about our Native American heritage dating back to pre-contact, we have the Mississippian period. And there's evidence of that culture and that heritage through mound buildings that took place within the region. And there are actually two mounds that are within close proximity of the park. What's referred to as the Carter Robinson Mound, which is just off of Indian Ridge. And then on US 58, we have what is referred to as the Ely Mound, which historically about 100 years ago, plus would have been located on the property that was owned by the Ely family who would build Carlin Mansion. The Cherokee presence later into the 16th, 17th, 18th century, and they used the Wilderness Road and what was originally the Warrior's Path as a corridor for hunting and traveling prior to European settlement. So we see a lot of travel by the Cherokee and the Shawnee in the north to travel from lands in Ohio to what is present-day Kentucky, Southwest Virginia, and Eastern Tennessee. Probably what we are by and large most known for is our interpretation of frontier settlement and frontier life. The Wilderness Road was a major route of westward expansion and was, as you see in quotations, discovered by Thomas Walker. Certainly, we know that the road existed well before him, but Thomas Walker is the one who is credited with probably the earliest documented travels on the road, and he would travel through the gap, past here through the gap into what is now present-day Kentucky near near Barberville before he would head back east into Virginia. Well, Joseph Martin comes and establishes his station in 1769, the original location of Martin Station, roughly 9+ miles from here in what is the Rose Hill community today. And due to some hostilities and some concerns on the frontier, Martin and his company would have to leave that first station, but they would return again in 1775 and built what we interpret as the recreated Martin Station today. And this acted as the last resting place for settlers and long hunters before they crested into the Cumberland Gap into Kentucky. Martin would also act as a land agent for the Transylvania Land Company, served as an officer in the Continental Army and Virginia Militia, and would later serve as an Indian agent. You can see a comment from a well-known figure here on the frontier of Virginia, John Redd, in 75. He gave us a little bit of an insight into Martin Station. He said, "We immediately set to work and we built several strong cabins and we stockaded them, which made it a good fort for defense. We then fenced it with brush and rails, a large portion of the old field in which we made a large crop of corn." And Red actually tells us some other details about the fort. And one of the things that we strive for here is we try to be historically accurate in our interpretation. And Red actually tells us that the fort was encompassed about a ½ acre and tells us about the construction of the cabins and how many there were. And we take documentation like that into our interpretive planning processes. So we talk about the Ely family. Today, a lot of times at the park, we know Carlin Mansion as a popular wedding venue here in Lee County. But Ely Dale really has a rich history. So the Ely family established themselves here along the Wilderness Road in the 1790s, just a few miles to the west of the park, and they became one of the most prominent families of Lee County. Throughout the late 18th century and early 19th century, they developed Lee County. Structures and landscapes in the park reflect early settlement patterns, including a few located cabins that we have here on the park, the Serber Cabin and the Robinson Cabin, which have strong connections to the late 18th century, and the Serber Cabin being a pre-Civil War structure that we have been tasked with upkeeping and interpreting. And then, of course, we have the Ely Dale Mansion. Robert M. Ely built Ely Dale in 1878 and lived there for 2 years prior to his untimely death. Much of the property is 19th century buildings that were originally here have now disappeared, and were later replaced during the Harris's ownership. Ely Dale's appearance has also changed pretty significantly. If you have been to the mansion in recent times, you may notice that it has a more antebellum period porch. That was added by the Harris family post 1947. But if you see in the picture in the lower right-hand corner there, that's how the mansion would have looked in 1878 with its more typical Victorian period style porch. In the railroad has a major impact on the Ely family, but on Lee County as a whole. It provides expansion into Southwest Virginia. The Louisville and Nashville Railroad extends its lines through Southwest Virginia in the late 19th century, well into the 20th century, overcoming a lot of the challenging terrain that you see in Southwest Virginia, East Tennessee, and East Kentucky. And the economic impact was huge. The L&N's presence spurred industrial growth in the county, particularly in the coal mining industry. If you get up what is present-day Scott County, Wise County, the L&N Railroad allowed an opportunity for coal to be brought out of the mountains and brought into other parts of the country in a much more economical fashion and in a much more timely way. The railroad provided a reliable link between isolated Lee counties and communities in Southwest Virginia, East Tennessee, Eastern Kentucky, to other communities like Morristown and Knoxville in Central Tennessee. Much of the railroad's original structures are still intact, and they include the Dry Branch Bridge, stone culverts, and other abutments. And we've got a few pictures here the one of the abutments there that now does you walk over this along the rail to trail. Originally, the railroad would have spanned over the creek there. And when we were working to do the cultural resource assessment with James isn't here tonight, but they came and we were actually able to find a culvert that is just immaculate. The stonework is absolutely beautiful. The whoever the craftsmen were that constructed that culvert, it's just amazing. So a lot of times the history of the railroad and the expansion of the railroad is kind of overlooked, but we do have a strong connection to the L&N and transportation history as well. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Celine.
Yep. Thank you all for that wonderful presentation and all of that. So as I said earlier, we are going to have a question and answer period, or hopefully at least a question period. We'll see if we can get the answers to you today or not, but we will definitely listen to you. But in addition to that, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that we will have, like I said, the 30-day comment period, which is going to be until April 5th. And if you want to email us, there's the email address right there. I am going to leave this slide up. So either you want to take a picture of it or you want to write down things or whatever. You can also scan that QR code, and the QR code will go right to the Your Comments Count survey. That's the word I'm looking for. Your Comments Count survey, and you'll be able to answer some questions there as well. But if you do go to the planning resources, be sure to put Wilderness Road State Park Master Plan in the subject line so we know which park you're going to be asking about or commenting about as well. So I'm going to turn it over to David again, and we'll open it up if you have any questions. And Katie is going to monitor the chat. So for those of you online, if you want to ask a question, just type it into the chat, and she will be able to tell us the question here as well.
Thanks, Lee.
Yes.
So Dave and where did he go? Casey. Yeah, we're also going to come up. So does anybody have any questions for us about the master plan, about any resources we talked about, anything else? And if not, we will be hanging back and by the maps. If you have any comments, definitely come by. If you, especially you think about the future of the park, that's why we're here. We're early on in the planning process. This just got started. We want to hear what y'all want to see at the park in the future. Any questions, or we can always go to the more informal route. All right, yes, sir.
Yeah, we're here on behalf of most of our equestrian friends. We ride out here every Saturday, just about. Lots of us do. We ride up on top of the mountain, and we bring people, when we have family and friends come, we bring them down here to this park because it's what you do. It's great what you do. When you cleared the trails for after the storm, I don't know who did it, but probably you guys, maybe not, but you did a great job. You know, getting them up back open for us, and we appreciate that. When we have brought friends to ride, their biggest thing was, well, we can't make loops. We got to go out and back. So our biggest thing is, in your planning, make loops for us to go up and come back down a different way rather than out and back. We ride along this out here and it says no horses. No horses over here. Well, why can't we ride the rest of the park? You know, that sort of thing.
Okay, that's it. Thank you for that comment.
I mean, that's about all I got, but I'm speaking for not just us, but there was 18 of us in our group on New Year's Day. We rode from one end and turned around and rode back. That's all we can do.
So just for those, if anybody's online that didn't hear that, we had a comment about expanding equestrian access and trails and preferably having loops as opposed to linear trails. All right, duly noted. Thank you for that. Anybody else have a question or comment?
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
One of my concerns for years has been the lack of overnight accommodations for people. People come here to visit, and it's a wonderful place to visit. We offer so many opportunities, and yet we don't offer accommodations for overnight to any extent. And I know that this is probably perhaps not a realistic thing, but my dream would be to see one day a resort here with a nice restaurant with overnight accommodations, similar to something like Mountain State. Because right now, people who come to visit are going into Tennessee or Kentucky to spend their money on basically food, restaurants, accommodations. And I think the park would benefit greatly, as well as the area from consideration for that.
Well, yeah, thank you for your comment. I can assure you, we're definitely going to be looking at, what overnight amenities would be possible here in the future. Obviously, Virginia State Parks really specializes in the camping and the cabins, and that's probably where our first focus will be. But again, we'll definitely be working on that through the planning process. And
One more thing I'd
yes,
like to
ma'am.
say, I'm 84 years old, and I really would like to see this happen.
So we not only need to get it planned, but we need to get money as soon as possible. All right, excellent. Thank you for that. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
If I may add to Pat's comment, the Cumberland Gap National Historical Park campground is very often full. So when we have people coming here, they can't stay there either.
Absolutely. So again, for those who may not have heard it, so the Cumberland National Historic Park, they have a campground as well, but it's often full. So trying to, again, provide other alternatives here at Wilderness Road to fill that need.
And when you're thinking of the Gilbert property, Mr. Gilbert wasn't here long enough for a lot of us who live here to get to know him. But if you think of the Drew and Bessie Golden place, we know where that is.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, any comments online? Okay. All right, well, we will hang out in the formal part of this presentation, but the park staff will be around. Please approach us. If you have anything you didn't want to say publicly, you wanted to say privately, please do. We've got the map at the front of the auditorium as well as the back, the theater rather. And, we would love y'all to come up and take a look and tell us what the type of things you want to see in the park and potentially where you'd want to see it in the park in the future. So with that said, we'll close the formal part of the meeting. We'll close the online part as well. But please do come and see us afterwards and tell us what you like. Thank you so much.